Paying the price for freedom, health experts say pulling back restrictions will lead to more deaths. President Trump even acknowledging lives will be lost as we jumpstart the economy. Many in the Valley have rallied to reopen, claiming they have a constitutional right to work. So do they? Our Claudia Rupsich spoke to a constitutional scholar about the power the government has while it deals with a pandemic.
The law professor said Governor Ducey's stay-at-home order and others like it across the nation are constitutional. In fact, he said the U.S. Supreme Court made it clear the government can limit rights when it comes to protecting the public during a pandemic. Over the past few weeks, people have gathered at the Arizona state capitol and in support of President Trump to demand that the economy reopen, claiming they have a constitutional right to work and that the stay-at-home order that prevents it is not legal.
If you were to assert that you have some constitutional right to get back to work against a background of a menacing threat like COVID-19, that falls flat. That is not a constitutionally sound claim.
Arizona State University law professor James Hodge is a national expert on emergency legal preparedness and public health law.
The freedom of assembly, the freedom of religion, right to free speech, all of these additional rights to due process, liberty interests, these are always balanced against governmental interests in protecting the public health and safety.
He says because we're dealing with a pandemic and public health emergency, the government can issue stay-at-home orders and restrict certain rights. And there's a precedent in Jacobson versus Massachusetts. That's a U.S. Supreme Court case from 1905 during the smallpox outbreak.
What the case actually stands for now more than ever is the fact that during emergencies, we will reassess and calibrate specific constitutional interests with the emergency event in mind. That is a constitutional balance that government gets to do.
What about those who don't feel safe going back to work? Hodge says there are legal claims you could make if your employer isn't taking precautions to minimize risk.
But you do it against the backdrop of suggesting I will not be coming to work until these things are fixed. The employer will find someone else, very likely, who will come to work to accomplish what you needed to do. And you really do run the risk of whether the employer would continue to pay under those circumstances, whether they would simply release you and face the legal consequences.
The nation's top infectious disease expert, Dr. Anthony Fauci, has warned against rushing to reopen, saying it'll lead to more deaths.
You are actually balancing something that I think is almost, well, quite frankly, hard to justify for a single proposition. Ask any one of us, are you willing to be the next person infected with COVID and take your chances? Or are you willing to be that person who goes to a hospital or healthcare worker or to a group of healthcare workers and says, we're willing to sacrifice your life just so long as we can get back to work?
A man in Flagstaff sued Governor Ducey, claiming that stay-at-home order is unconstitutional. That case will go in front of a federal judge later this week. I'm Claudia Rupsich, ABC 15 Arizona.